Good morning. I would like to call the facility committee meeting to order. Noting all the board members are here and members of the various components of our meeting that need to speak. The approval of the agenda. Moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I have received no public comments. Moving on to the Heritage Elementary bid. We have Rich here from Vogel.
Morning.
We have a chunk of them to look at.
If I could just start, Joan.
Sure.
So just to note a couple of things for the committee members, we put this month's approval list in a little bit of a different format because there were so many of them. Otherwise, it would already been like, 12 sheets. And so what we decided to do was put each of them on a document for you with the low bidder, and then you can see the low bid amount and then the budget amount and how it was over or under. We also put in the notes that the intent is for Vogel to continue going through the rest of the bids that were received at the bid day that Randy and I had the opportunity to attend, to bring them to an August committee meeting. And then at the same time, be able to present what's called the guaranteed maximum price, which is the final calculation of the full amount of the school. We think we were best in a best position to allow the board to approve the bids as they came in, so the school can continue under construction. And then present the GMP at the same time you're finishing the bid process. The middle school is going to look a little differently. So just keep in mind when we get into the middle school process, it's going to look different because we're not doing an early start. We're not going out and starting on the site work and then doing concrete and then doing steel. And so just know that the process is different for this school versus the next one. So we're going to ask the committee to come together in August before the August board meeting. Rich will be back. We'll be presenting what we believe will be the final round of bids, as well as the guaranteed maximum price. That will allow us to begin the dialogue with this committee about appropriate contingency levels for the remainder of the project. And or if we want to start having a discussion about moving some funds around. That also is a discussion that we've thrown on the retreat for Wednesday night. We feel like that's a larger item that the entire board needs an opportunity to discuss, which is really the topic of, as savings come in from a particular project like Heritage or hopefully at the middle school. Wanted to make sure the board is on the same page with how that is handled. So that discussion will be Wednesday, which will feed into the August committee meeting. So at this point, we'll turn it over to Rich to kind of review what's in front of you this morning, and you're welcome to ask them any questions, but go ahead, Rich.
Good morning, everybody. So the document that you have in front of you would be the next batch of bids that we're seeking approval on. The focus here has to do with subcontractors that are involved with either buttoning up the exterior skin of the building, i.e. drying it in, and also things that would potentially impact like our slab boards, our concrete slab on grade, or our concrete topping boards. Or things that may go into those or have an impact on those. So that's really where this focus is. And as Steve alluded to, there will be another batch coming up in August that will really bring things across the finish line from like a finishes perspective, exterior improvements perspective. So this is kind of the next step in the process, if you will, from a prioritization of who we want to onboard as far as subcontractors go. If you'd like, there is in talking with some folks, you'll notice that there are a couple of trades on here that are performing multiple scopes, i.e. CMR/CMS being involved in a couple of the different types of floorings that we have. Similarly with the CM Morris, involved not only in spray applied air barrier, waterproofing, but also your spray applied fire protection or applied fire protection, things like that. And the reason that we like to look at those things is when you're able to bundle with a specific subcontractor, a lot of times, or shouldn't say a lot of times, some of the time that lends itself to increased savings. Like, hey, if we do these 3 trades instead of 1, we can offer this kind of discount. So in both of those instances, we were able to achieve a little bit more of a discounted rate by bundling things together. But at the end of the day, you know, the people that represented were low and responsible kind of to start with. So I'm happy to tick down through the list, line by line, if folks feel that that's warranted, or just kind of open it up to questions, whichever anybody prefers. Or is there a preference, I guess?
I don't need it line by line. And I have any thoughts on?
So you're recommending low bid.
Low responsible bidders, yeah. Yeah, that's what represented here on the list. You know, numbers versus budget, I think we're doing well. I'd like to think at a bare minimum, we're holding the line, and I think we're actually improving the line a little bit at the end of the day. And I think more will come on that come August.
But can you talk a little bit about your process? I mean, we had bid day, we watched all the bids come in. But that's not necessarily the number that's just getting automatically transferred here. You have a lot of work that you do behind the scenes with your vetting out those issues. Sometimes the vendor is bringing forth ideas that are also getting vetted out, that then you kind of weigh against with some conversations with us. And that kind of leads then to your final recommendation here with, you know, who's qualified, who hit the mark as far as the bid, and then the numbers.
Yeah, that's a great point, Randy, and something I'd be happy to touch on. So we receive the numbers in, then oftentimes what I'll do is very rarely will I start with the low company. I want to go to the middle company or the high company, and I want to see how they're looking at things. Like, before I reach out to the low guy, I want to understand the scope that the next highest or the highest people have, to make sure that low person has that stuff included as well, if that makes sense. There's also very specific dialogue about making sure that how they're looking at it is in alignment with design intent and specification. And I guess the example that I would use there, or that I could touch on, has to do with the roofing. Currently, Northern Roofing and Sheet Metal is the company that we are recommending. They're currently doing work for the district. However, there was a discrepancy in the specification. So how the specification was written was not really in alignment with how roofers would do this particular job, or how roofing jobs have been done in the district in the past. So because of how vitally important the roof is, I took it a step further, and I actually had a call with Northern, with the architect, talking through exactly, you know, how we're looking at the roof. And it's very, very much in alignment with industry standards, how Northern Roofing and Sheet Metal looked at it. We were able to have that dialogue with the architect, get their buy-in 100%. You know, I want to be careful not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but as an example, they had called for a fully adhered base layer of insulation, and then all subsequent layers of insulation after that being mechanically fastened. Well, if you go that route, then you've just spent money and labor on adhesive that's not necessary, right? Because if you're fully mechanically fastening everything through the bottom layer, what's the logic then in adhering that initial layer? So those are the kinds of discussions and dialogue that we have in effort to land on the product that the architect wants, offer the district the most value, and then make sure that there's alignment there, right? So that's kind of what goes into that whole fully, you know, that vetting process. And so far it's been working out quite well. EUA has been great to work with. They understand that there's different ways to look at things. Their spec writer has been involved. And as long as we're staying in line with design intent, recommended manufacturers and that type of thing, they've been willing to work with us on that front. So.
Thanks, sir.
So I guess the question there is who's writing the requirements documents? Is it EUA?
Yes,
They're writing. So you just brought up this example of current practice in roof installation. Are they not up on current practice, or did we change the requirements? Is everybody getting a fair shake of this?
I believe, yeah, absolutely, everybody's getting a fair shake at it, I would argue. Specifications are one of those things that, you know, with how things are changing in our industry, different products, things like that. I don't know that, it's our job to work with the architect and make sure that there's alignment there. I think EUA has done a fine job in writing the specifications. I think that with the voluminous nature of that document, the specification document, there's things that always require talking through with subs to make sure that, you know, that's in alignment with how things are getting installed now versus maybe a couple of years ago, right? So
I guess the question on the roof, and I'm assuming that Northern is doing industry standards, so they're not putting the adhesive down because they're mechanically attached.
well, that and the fact that they, based on the work that they've been doing in the district in the past, they've kind of landed on a system that the district very much is on board with. And a system that works.
The follow-up question is these, I'm assuming that these people were low bid, or was there somebody that was lower than them?
No, these are all in all of these instances where we are looking at low responsible bids.
So was somebody putting a bid in because the requirements document said we want adhesive?
Yeah.
So you're putting, you know, I'm putting the adhesive in, you're not,
Right.
you know, am I at a disadvantage?
No, because once that's clarified, I give folks an opportunity to get it to apples to apples. At the end of the day, I'm always trying to get it apples to apples, right? To level that playing field. Now, Jack, I may not do that with all 6 roofers, right? Because if we have 4, you know, 3 of them that are considerably,
Right.
You know, that they're not gonna be able to move the needle that much, right?
Understood.
But with the low 2 or 3, I'm certainly giving everybody an opportunity to get that, to level that playing field and get it apples to apples. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we've had a couple of situations. There was one that came up through our meetings that. As we worked with Rich, we just asked him to go back out to all the bids. Because there were a few things that as we were vetting them out and taking a look at it, there were some suggestions that were coming forward as far as how things could be looked at differently or a different material or some of those type of things. And then we brought it back through all the bidders that we made sure we had the right cost.
Thanks for the clarification.
You bet.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I would take a motion to accept these bids. Motion to accept.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Rich.
My pleasure.
So
Happy
Rich-
to, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm happy to attend tonight if anybody feels there's a need for that. Just let me know, I guess. Otherwise, I'll be anxiously watching on Zoom TV or YouTube TV.
Don't live that far away. We can always like, Rich.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rich.
Get in the car.
Dial in.
Yeah, I don't.
Follow
know if
friend.
we do something like that.
Okay, very good.
Board feels any differently.
I don't.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
I was just gonna ask what, as far as the timeline, ahead of schedule, on schedule, too early to say?
No, we are absolutely on schedule. We are starting masonry today. It's very exciting. You're gonna see your first firewall going up on column G line, and that should be about a 16-foot wall that you're gonna see fully erected here. Entire width of E-wing there. by Wednesday, we're being told that that wall will be topped out. We are dialed in with our steel delivery. Our first steel delivery will be happening July 25th. And we have JP Cullen fully on board to make that happen, or, to be there to receive. Not that it hasn't been exciting, but it's gonna really ramp up now, and you're gonna see some structure going up, and yeah, we're gonna really get into the throes of things now.
What I talked to Rich about was when would be the best time to kind of do either like a special meeting or invite to the board to walk the site.
Yeah.
We had that conversation at our last meeting. We thought probably sometime right before school starts in August. Because at that point, you'll start to see the steel will be going up. You'll see kind of the structure of the school. And you'll have something to look at as opposed to just the foundation piece around it. So we'll look at that probably at the August meeting and set something up that anyone who's interested, we can kind of provide that opportunity.
Yeah, by the way, we're pouring the area B, the gymnasium slab. We're pouring that Thursday, which is well ahead of where we initially thought. There's a lot of reasons for that, but there's no underground work really in that gym area, i.e. plumbing and electric. All that'll be either in wall or overhead, so that lends itself. That gymnasium portion of the project could almost become its own like standalone project, if you will. So that could move forward a little bit faster than other areas of the project, but our first slab pour coming up, that's another very, very exciting milestone. We're looking forward to making it happen this week.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work.
You bet. Thank you all very much. Hope you have a banging Monday.
Moving on to the consideration of capital projects. Don, are you taking notes?
Let me just start with a little background and then we'll send it over to John and
Okay.
anyone else that needs to give you some input. So as a reminder, the facility committee requested that we come up with a tracking document. Because we were kind of throwing projects at the committee from a variety of different levels, and the request was, hey, let's try to get this in one area. So we came up with this approach. And as a reminder, we're putting the budgeted amount at the top. We pulled $500,000 from the bleacher extension, which was a standalone project in a different bucket of referendum money, but became a part of the larger Warrior Stadium project. So we pulled that budget over here. And we're tracking what the committee has approved to date and then showing funds available. I have the yellow highlighted because again, this is a to be discussed with the board item, which is the concept of allocating funds from either contingency or interest earnings or both to really expand the capability of what we can do from this referendum in the area of maintenance. So that's kind of a to be discussion with the whole board, but I'm highlighting that so that when we get into Wednesday night, you'll know as we're having that discussion, it kind of ties back to this yellow line that the board as a whole may choose at some point to move money. As an example, you could decide to move money from Heritage when you see that Heritage picture into here, which would allow the committee to see more maintenance projects. So that's kind of what we're talking about there. We're tracking everything that's been approved in the next area. So you've got everything that the committee has approved going back to March. You want to scroll down a little bit, Rebecca? There's an area of pending. So we're tracking anything that this committee has said, okay, we go out and learn more about this and bring it back to us. And right now, the project in that area is still the softball field lights. Rattler's been on site, several times. They're preparing their report. I am hoping I can bring that back when the committee meets in August. And I'm hoping we can make a decision about ordering the lights at the August board meeting in conjunction with a fall project to get them installed at whatever field we're going to do. then they'd be ready in the spring. So that's the hope for that one, is August. And then below that, we have a relatively small list of things that we're asking you to consider this month. What we've got down below is projects that we, administration, are proposing and asking for you to take a look at today. Ultimately, if you do recommend these to the board, then they switch into that column up above, and it comes off the 3.3 million. At this point, I'll turn it over to John. I know Tiffany's here because there is a special ed restroom remodel that, in the event that you have any questions. Oh, thank you for coming up, Tiffany. Tiffany could be the person to help explain that one. And so, John, maybe let Tiffany go first, and then you can jump in with anything else. Tiffany, do you want to just touch on that project there?
Yes, we're, as you know, basically running out of space at the middle school. So this coming year, we have 3 students in wheelchairs at the middle school who would all need support with restrooming, using the bathroom and transfers and those types of things. So we're trying to find, we also have a 1-to-1 student who uses the bathroom frequently. So we're trying, we did some touring around to try and figure out what another bathroom space that we could use. So the locker room and the downstairs off the gym is not used real frequently. Middle school students don't change like they used to back in the good old days. So we would like to restructure a little bit of that space, and it's right now it's stalls, but we would just need to like make a larger stall so that we can use like a lift to help lift students. We have a Hoyer lift, and we also need to be able to get adults on either side of the toilet so that we can help in terms of transferring on and off the toilet. So the remodel is just basically creating more space so we have an additional bathroom to use for the next year. So.
Is there any grant money for that, or is that?
Not that I'm aware of. No, not that I'm aware of. It's kind of a Band-Aid to fix until we get to a larger building, obviously, so. But at least, you know, it's not like it's going to completely change the space either. It is gonna change the bathroom stalls, but it's not gonna completely change the space. So when it does become part of the high school campus, you know, there's still gonna be lockers in there. There's still, you know, it could still be used for its intended purpose. It's just that the actual like stalls are gonna be a little.
This is really a minor modification to what we have there as opposed to a rebuild. If you remember a rebuild we did at the TLC several years ago was considerably more expensive. This is just really kind of reconfiguring the stalls.
I guess I would throw it to the committee as to whether you want John to walk through each of those items at the bottom, kind of like with Bridget Vogel, or do you just want to ask him questions about any of those particular projects? It's totally up to you. Happy to go over any of these.
Can you talk about the tree and light blocking material for the shopping center?
The item at the very top of this list was the Warrior Field, and so along with the renovations that are being done at Warrior, the folks on site, football, and my team members and other district team members that go out there and view the project. Notice the fencing along the west side has the trees.
The older trees.
Right, they've become kind of a nuisance with the signage there. They're overgrown, hard to maintain, they're pushing through the fence, so one of the solutions has been that we're discussing here is to take those trees down and put a light blocking material along that western fence. And then that would require the re-landscaping of the turf there, so basically you take the trees down. New grass and put the light blocking material along the fence on the western edge instead of the trees. So that's that.
And the coaches who use that field have been spoken to. I just wonder about with track. Do those trees help in that setting west sun during our track meets?
I would like to say that anything above the fence line, yes, obviously, I think those trees go what, probably 5 to 10 feet above the fence.
I just
So that would,
would hope that you've spoken to the coaches. So
I'd have to double check with all the coaches on that component.
Those trees are also becoming overgrown.
Say again, Jeff?
Trees are also a wind block.
That's true.
You know, it's. I don't have a concern about it. It's just, I hope that we don't do something and then the coach says, oh, wow. Between the wind and the sun and, you know,
But I think a lot of these tracks are, teams are bringing tents,
that's true.
so they're track, cross country. The bigger concern is just the wind. But you get to deal with that all the time.
We're not stopping the wind out of the south either.
So it's a matter of can we throw the football out in that direction?
And I think when you look at supervision, when you get some of those larger games, you sometimes lose kids into those trees. So I think it's a piece to get rid of them for that reason, when is my experience has been that, so. That'd be a positive for the solution that you have there, plus they're just overgrowing into the fence area.
It's starting to use.
I would support the change. So are these all this 3.3 million, the projects on the top? Just remind me, are they all the summer's projects?
That's all this for this year.
It's a combination, Jack. There are some very large items as well that are connected to our 20-year long-term maintenance plan. So as an example, the big purchases from North American Mechanical are all connected to the equipment that we have at the top of our 20-year list. Obviously, we have the roof replacement at the middle school, where now we're doing the entire roof, which was at the top of our 20-year list. So it's definitely a blend of long-term, high needs maintenance items, combined with, smaller projects. Again, they're important, but I would say it's a blend of both, and we're trying to keep that in mind when we're bringing things to you, that we're tackling the most important urgent areas.
So the air handler and replacement of chiller 1 and 2, are those on track?
They're on their way right now. I met with Pete from NAMI last week. He came out to look at some structural components with our blueprints last week. So they're looking to move forward with that job by looking at the structures on this one. Again, this to explain, this list is meant to go, and many of these things are started now and then meant to go through June of next year.
Are the air handlers and chillers and so forth, will those be in place by start of school?
It's highly unlikely, I got to double check the timeline with NAMI and those are the long lead time units that we're going to get their order.
So I have no problems with the proposed projects. I would recommend that we move forward with them.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
A lot of work out there.
Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind going back to the next agenda item, please.
To the NAMI contract.
Yeah, and this one is really where I'm looking for feedback from the committee on process. So we have a long-term preventative maintenance contract with North American Mechanical that this committee recommended prior to this contract that's expiring to go out to market to seek bids. We weren't in a referendum process at that time. We had finished the process through the construction of the intermediate school. We're in between projects, and the committee recommended a full bid out to the broader subcontractor community to for our preventative maintenance program. North American Mechanical was the only company that submitted a bid. This is still a bit of a proactive type approach that you don't see a lot in the industry. As an example, they electronically connect with our facility use system, so they know when graduation's occurring. And we'll adjust the HVAC accordingly. That's still not all that common to have those type of agreements out there. So we didn't have competitors putting in proposals, but North American Mechanical also didn't know at that time that no one else was bidding. So now we're in a situation where the contract's expiring, but we're in a referendum process and the board has selected NAMI to be our partner throughout the referendum project. So they've put together an extension of the existing contract that would adjust based on example, the old Heritage and Intermediate site being repurposed and they don't need to do anything there in that year, right? And then the new Heritage is under a warranty, so we wouldn't have to pay for that, right? And then the new middle school. So basically, this is an addendum that wraps around the construction. What I'm looking for your feedback on is whether or not as a committee and ultimately do you think the board would be comfortable with an addendum to the current contract that looks like this? Or would you prefer us to go out to market again and to see what might be available out there? Or do you prefer something else? So kind of just throwing this out there. We started, I asked NAMI to only create an addendum to the current contract to go around the referendum project, so you could see what that would look like. I would not prefer a brand new contract, because if we did a brand new contract, I think it should go out to market. This would just simply be an addendum around the referendum projects. But if your preference would be like a brand new contract, I think we should go a different route. So I'm just looking for your feedback on whether something like this to wrap around the projects would make sense to you, or if you think we should go another route. And this is not on the agenda for tonight, by the way. I just wanted feedback to see where you thought we should go with it.
I think this makes sense.
Yeah, I think.
Where we're at.
I think this makes sense. I guess the question would be, do you go 3 years versus 5 years? I'm sure right now, we're not adding the new middle school until 27. Sure. And this way it just keeps the maintenance consistent, through 26, 27. Sure. So that would be a question and it makes sense. Sure. To go out if the board wants to go out to bid. But NAMI's been a good partner. I think they've really kept our systems up well. And I think they've been reasonable, as we've seen in the bid process. They've used 0.5 million in their pencils.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable either the 3 years or the 5 years. Either would be.
Okay, all right, well, John and I can connect back in with them and get a proposal for the next committee meeting that in August. And then one more agenda item. So in the referendum project, the district does need some partner to assist with energy services. And what I mean by that is just a simple example would be a solar system project at the brand new Heritage School. Back in 2014, we went with a different approach where the board hired a firm named Sustainable Engineering that did all of the energy services for the school itself and solar and everything we needed. But the majority of the energy work has now been incorporated into the Epstein agreement. So Epstein is writing the grants for us for like the school itself, and they're doing the energy components for the school itself. So it's no longer an added cost. it's really kind of part of their base package at this point, and that makes sense. Just as the way things have evolved. But because we don't have anyone, we do need assistance with things like putting a solar system in place at the new school. And there's other things that we listed here are the types of things that an energy services partner could help us with. Solar at the middle school is another example. Evaluating the solar at the intermediate school to make sure that it's working the way we had intended. There is a federal grant program out there that is connected to the infrastructure law that's available for schools. We would ask for assistance with that. Again, it's not for the school, but it's for energy projects. We're looking at electric vehicle charging stations at the new schools, and we would want some assistance with that. And then any other energy related. So it's going to be significantly scaled back than what we did at the intermediate school, but we still need some assistance. So there's a couple of ways we could go with this. The board has already hired Westfall as our electrical subcontractor. Back in 2014, they did not have these services available as a firm. They do now. And we've attached their information just for you to see. So John and I met with them to really try to understand, what Westfall is doing as a company now in the solar area. And they put this together for us to share with you. In addition to that, there are firms that just specialize in energy services. I think I mentioned in the notes that Randy's helped join us at a couple of the meetings, but we've met with a couple of the firms that just do that. So the question for this committee is, do you want to partner up with a firm like Westfall that you already went through an RFP process with and is selected and is doing the work already across the referendum? Or would you prefer administration to put together like a request for proposal document and get it out not only to Westfall, but a couple of other firms who just specialize in this, and then we could bring them back to you for review? So just looking for your feedback as to kind of process, do we partner with a firm you've already hired, but in a new kind of area of work for them? Or do you want us to kind of take it out to market and see what's out there?
Do you feel like this partnership would be more efficient if we partner with Westfall on these endeavors, or? Because they're,
I think it would be fair to draw that conclusion that because they're doing the electrical, they already mentioned to John and I some of the advantages of them working with the team that's putting in the electrical that'll eventually connect to the solar. And, if you go with an outside firm, they're going to have to build in that evaluation with Westfall. So yeah, I think there's definitely some efficiency there with working with one firm. But I wanted to bring it to you because when Westfall was selected by the board, what we presented was the electrical and the technology. We didn't present this at that time.
I can see that a question. With this, because it is a separate package. Can we understand what the rate is? Yeah, we've got this built-in efficiency, and I agree with that. But if it's a rate of $200 per hour versus the efficient solar installer at 150, I'd also like to understand how many systems have they put in. So because we go up on a learning curve. So it would be interesting to understand that.
Would your request be more detailed information from Westfall, or doing that in conjunction with asking the other firms to do the same thing?
Well, one of the things I do like about Westfall is that you've got one contractor we go to, and if we have a problem, you don't have to. Right? that guy's fine. So we've got, I like that. I like the efficiency, they're already on site, you know, so they're gonna be here. But it would just be kind of interesting to understand what the rate is.
I'm sure. Yeah,
You know,
we
what-
can definitely do that.
You know, what rate is Westfall charging us versus what is the hourly rate? You know, for the different people.
Sure.
That would be.
Yep.
and Not necessarily,
Like
you
an
know,
industry average or something like that. for rates.
well, I think if you get like 3 or 4, there's like a handful of people that are doing this on a regular basis. You know, you can just kind of survey those people, you know, what are their hourly rates and, you know, for you know, laborers and sure, you know, things like that. And, you know, at least that gives us an idea.
Yeah, and they offered to put that in there for this time, but I said, well, I first want to just kind of keep the discussion as to whether we're gonna go out for a full RFP or whether we're gonna. So they did offer to throw that in there, and I said, well, let me first see where we're gonna go with this, so I can do that, and I can bring that back to the next meeting. And again, this is not on the agenda tonight, I just wanted some feedback. So,
I saw your hand. Did you have something to add?
I was just gonna talk about the added efficiency because, like, as you guys know, Westfall is on site with the project management component versus. Who Westfall or another provider may go out to sub some of the work anyway. Westfall would be full project management and the construction work itself where. Together.
Are they doing it internally with their team or do they subcontract?
They're doing it internally and that leads to your other question about the experience. Like Steve said, this is a new component for Westfall that they've been ramping up over the past few years. So they have now employees that we met with that have experience with installing these in larger buildings. So they have the experience on staff.
okay, that's good feedback. We will gather that information and bring it back in August.
Okay, great. And we'll set a meeting tonight. For the August. So motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in on a board meeting morning. We'll see you all later tonight.
You know, but he's one of those,